Baltimore Ravens lose to the New England Patriots. They no longer control their own destiny. This is Sam Njoku, host of the Ravens Talk podcast. We'll talk about what that means for this Ravens team moving forward.
Yeah, a season that was a lot of high hopes has come and gone, and now you have to look forward to what is the possibilities. Kadri Ismail, Super Bowl champion. We're going to break it all down.
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. And the Ravens would need a miracle to get into the playoffs. But if we're being honest, after the way their season started and the way this game went and the way the year has gone, they don't even really deserve to make the playoffs anyway. We break it all down on the Locked On Ravens Squad show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to it.
Oh,
I forgot.
hello.
Gotcha.
Welcome
Gotcha.
in.
Hi. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I forgot to take Kevin off the screen. Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. This is Sam Njoku. Joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail. We are breaking down an unfortunate loss to the New England Patriots, 28-24. The Ravens no longer control their destiny. We'll talk all about it. I know a lot of Ravens fans are disappointed. This is going to be a therapeutic session for you guys, and we'll dive deep into what went wrong in this game and what could be in store for this Ravens team in the future. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Ravens lose to the New England Patriots. Tough because the Ravens were up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. We'll touch on the coaching decision that we believe cost the Ravens the game. We'll touch on Lamar Jackson's back injury. He actually spoke with reporters, spoke with Kadri Ismail as well. So we'll get his insights into what he said and how he looked after the game. And we'll talk about what's next for this football team as the Ravens will need a miracle to make the playoffs. Not out of the question, but definitely some questionable things the Ravens did in this contest and things that we'll need to talk about moving forward. As, maybe the Browns beat the Patriots and, Browns beat the Steelers, I should say, and the Ravens beat the Packers, and there's a Week 18 matchup, but highly unlikely everything going down. Let's talk about the Ravens again. The Ravens were up 24 points, 24-17, I believe, or 24-13 before everything went to high HELL. I don't know if I can say that word on this show, but
you can say it.
Everything went to hell. Gosh darn it. Everything went to hell. Well,
AO cleared it for you to say
Yes,
it.
Yeah,
that is allowed.
Appreciate the all clear. But yeah, the Ravens were up, looking pretty good. I know the defense were unable to get to Drake Maye often, but the questionable decision, in my opinion, was removing Derrick Henry from the flow when it seemed like they had no answers for Derrick Henry. Q, you were at the game. You talked to Derrick Henry afterwards. What are your thoughts about the decision to not have Derrick Henry in, and do you think that was most likely the deciding factor in them losing this contest?
Yeah, so I think for the way John Harbaugh explained it, it was we're going to have a rotation. The rotation is having Keaton Mitchell and Derrick Henry and Rasheen Ali kind of rotate through. And it just so happened that that was the rotation that Derrick was, it was Keaton's turn, I guess. And so Derrick then spoke, and he pretty much was saying pretty much the same thing of they just had a rotation and that was that. It's kind of odd because I know in my years of playing, usually if you do have rotations, usually it is a scenario where you will have a guy that is a good change of pace guy, or however you want to call it, your specialty guy. He'll be in there, but your stud guy, he is the one that's definitely going to remain in there in the fourth quarter or in a crunch time moment. And so that's where, this one is a little perplexing that they would say it, that Derrick was just involved in a rotation, and it just kind of rolled off their tongue like, yeah, he just involved in a rotation. I mean, that's what it was. So a guy who had only 18 touches, but he was doing it at 128 yards of rushing offense, 7.1 a clip, and obviously we saw what he did as far as the touchdown runs. It's perplexing, because you look at Keaton Mitchell, he only had 13 yards. 13 yards. So clearly, the hot hand, and that from the idea of plays, let's see, the total number of plays was, again, why do we keep doing this? 54. So, yeah, 71 by the Patriots and only 54 by your offense. And good God, man, you had 6.1 a play average, and Patriots had 6.4. I mean, this was just a butt whooping all the way around. But the Patriots couldn't run the football, yet they were converting on third down. And if you look at, the third down conversion, I mean, my God, man, this is winning football right here. 7 of 11, 63%. And so when you go back at it, you're up by 2 scores. Your defense is hemorrhaging. You get the ball back. I think that is where, you do call upon your stud in Derrick Henry. All signs point to this being a game which you should have won, and all signs are pointing to a typical Ravens loss that we've now come accustomed to. Get your double-digit lead and all the things, and that's all well and good, but in the end, it's like, no, it's not good enough. And here we are. We're looking at a team that is undeserving of putting themselves in that conversation as an upper-tier team, when we know in the beginning of the year they looked it, talked it, we all bought into it. Heck, I was talking it. But right now, nah, you're just a mid-level, below mid-level. You're just below a mid-level team. That's what it is.
Something you said there, Q, resonated with me, and that is the word again. It's the word again, where this is not a new thing. This is not a young team where you're like, this is the first time we've seen this, so they can learn from it. This has been a trend for weeks and months this season. It has been a trend for years with John Harbaugh. And, I'm glad I get to rant for like the third time in like an hour and a half here. Watch along, none of the instant reaction. Now I'm here. But this to me was the most egregious loss that they've had. And honestly, the most frustrated I've been in a loss in the regular season with this team in years, because it felt so obvious. And Q, you mentioned it, like Keaton didn't have it in this game. And that's okay. Like Keaton's not going to have it every game. Derrick's not going to have it every game. But, with this whole rotation stuff, and something I'm going to dive into a little more tomorrow and as the week goes on, if the game, it feels like the Ravens are so stuck in their ways. Like it feels like they can't adjust as easy as other teams can adjust. If you have a rotation, that's great. But in a game like this, when Derrick Henry is just obliterating this run defense, and by the way, one of the most frustrating things, and I think on the instant reaction, I said one of the most frustrating things like 10 different times. But truly, one of the most frustrating things was I thought this was the offensive line's best game of the season. Like, I thought that they were blowing guys off the ball in the run game. The Patriots had no answer to their physicality. It wasn't perfect, obviously, but even like protecting Tyler Huntley when he came in. And like, I thought that they played really well. And so the way that this went, and I said it on the watch long, when they threw that pass to, I think it was an incomplete pass to Bateman on the second to last drive, the first down. I was like, okay, but like, didn't you just run the ball down their throats and score a touchdown on that previous drive? And then they ran with Keaton. And again, I guess the rotation gives you context, but I don't care about the rotation if Derrick Henry is doing what Derrick Henry is doing in that game. And I think that to me is like John Harbaugh has to step in, like, and he's the head guy, and say, I don't care about this rotation right now because Derrick Henry is obliterated and falling forward for 5 yards on every single play. I mean, the man averaged 7.1 yards per carry on 18 carries. I mean, the stat has been put out there a bajillion on billions of millions of times. But the fact to me is it felt like they, again, abandoned who they were in the biggest moment. And that has been a trend for years with this team. And it's crazy to me. Even when even when the Patriots took the lead and they got back on that field, the most frustrating thing, and I'm saying it like 50 times in this show, one of the most frustrating things was that first down play call, that screen pass to Rasheen Ali. Like, what are we doing on that play? Not even the fact that Ali was in the game, but I put out on social media, I said, if Derrick Henry's not in the game on this drive, changes need to be made. Because Derrick Henry himself can be a threat on the backfield. And I don't care about game flow. I don't care about any of that when you are running the ball that effectively against a team that has been one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL since their star defensive lineman went down. And you took advantage of that for 55 minutes. And then for the last 5 minutes of the game, you just completely abandoned who you were and what got you to that point. It's the same story. The Ravens get there by doing something, and then they get too cute. The offense had, I think, their best drive of the year in that opening possession. Just absolutely dominated New England on that possession. And then I get Lamar goes down. I get the Zay fumble. I get the Henry fumble. Like, there were other circumstances in this, but you also had 3 timeouts. It's not like you didn't have a timeout left and you had to like scramble and like do short passes to the sideline or, go and try to throw the ball to pick up chunk yards. You could have still ran that ball, picked up 7 yards on a first down, and called a timeout or rushed back to the line. It's not like they had to go like hurry up all the way, 2-minute offense. You could have used your timeouts in that situation. And John Harbaugh said he was going to go back in the game. I'm not like, that's what he said. I don't know if I believe him personally, because we've heard what John Harbaugh has said about game flow and Rasheen Ali before. And I don't know if Harbaugh's a guy that like saves face like that in these situations, but I don't know. It's the same thing over and over again. And that's what I keep coming back to.
Same. I mean, I remember the AFC Championship 2023 when the Ravens lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. They didn't run the ball, I think like 6 times. It was just a ridiculous number of running back rushes. And I thought to myself, well, if the Ravens had made that trade in the middle of the season for Derrick Henry, the Ravens would have been forced to run the football, and therefore the Ravens would have probably gone to the Super Bowl. We know the answer to that now was it doesn't matter if it was Barry Sanders, it doesn't matter who was running back. Could have been Derrick Henry, could have been anybody. It could have been LaDainian Tomlinson. The Ravens would have ran the ball 6 times because the coaching staff does not have an idea of what flow means in the sense of understanding what's going on with the football game, understanding who to put out there, understanding what to do when you have a game in which the running game is working so phenomenally well and you have a backup QB. You need to put somebody on the field that's going to be able to take pressure away from that backup QB. The Ravens didn't do that, and the Ravens lose. And it's really, really interesting now to see where this Ravens team is going to go in the future. We're going to get to that, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this coaching staff. I want to get your thoughts on it. Do you put the onus on Todd Monken or John Harbaugh in this instance? I've seen a lot of comments here saying the blame goes to Monken. Some people saying the blame goes to Harbaugh. Kevin, who do you think would get the blame for this because of this flow that the Ravens are talking about, of this, putting Keaton Mitchell in and maybe putting Derrick Henry on the next drive? I'm not sure what the plan was, but who do you put the blame on, Kevin?
I mean, I think it's both, but everything to me falls back on the head coach. Like we've talked about before. I mean, John Harbaugh's in those meetings. John Harbaugh knows what's going on. John Harbaugh's a part of the final. I mean, John Harbaugh's the head guy. And I do think that Monken deserves blame for it in the rotation and whatnot. But it's on John Harbaugh if Monken wants to run that to be like, no, we just are going to put Derrick in the game and spam Derrick Henry. And I'm overriding that. And again, I don't know how the stuff works with their coaching staff or within their locker room or the organization or whatnot in terms of like how those calls get made and how those overrides happen. But that's a situation where you have as clear as day, a situation right in front of you where you run this guy and it wasn't a small sample size. 18 carries is a lot of carries. And this team just couldn't stop him. There was a defensive lineman injury for the Patriots. He was ruled out. They were getting thin on the D line and guys couldn't out physical Baltimore's O-line, especially with Derrick in the game. He was running over guys. It's cold out. Like, I don't want to tackle Derrick when it's cold outside in the fourth quarter of a game after he's already bludgeoning you. Like, I don't want that. It just feels like to me, John Harbaugh, he should have the power to say, hey, we're not doing this rotation right now because Derrick is cooking. And I wanting to get guys involved and giving them opportunities. When your season's on the line and you have a guy going the way that he's going, the way Derrick Henry proved he could run against this Patriots defense, I mean, I think, yes, Monken deserves blame, but John Harbaugh's the head guy, and it falls back on him for not making that executive decision.
Yeah, there's no offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, blame, game, corniness going on. You are the head guy. The beat stops with you. You got to know the game plan. You got to know an understanding of what you are required to do as a head coach, and that's that. There's an understanding of what our defense is doing, what our offense is doing, you know, gathering all that information, making sure that we're on task. I know you're not you meaning John, he's not a offensive minded guy, nor is he a defensive minded guy. He, I guess, coached the defensive backs. I guess, at some point he did that, but, primarily he obviously did special teams, and therefore he's a more of a kind of a CEO manager type head coach, as opposed to saying Dan Campbell, who calls the plays, or um, I don't know, Johnson up in Chicago. He's going to be calling offensive snaps. Dan Quinn down in DC. He's going to be calling defensive snaps. So John, obviously, like I said, there's things that he should, could, would do, but for him to for us, or for people to just blindly say it's Todd Monken, when John be like, no, let's go ahead and stick to the run. Let's make sure Derrick is doing his thing. Let's get him in there, as opposed to just sitting back. It's just, I think that's unacceptable. And if John feels like he is doing something to protect his players or his coach or whatever, the bottom line is that from a statistical standpoint, you're the worst team in NFL history with having a double-digit lead and giving up that lead in the fourth quarter religiously. I saw one of our colleagues, he had posted up a stat saying that Mike Tomlin is 103-0 when having a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. And John is the worst in NFL history. That's a head coach issue. That's not a coordinator or anybody else issue. That's a head coaching issue.
I hope Steve Bisciotti's listening, because you're absolutely right. That is the case. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to touch on Lamar Jackson, because, that should be the main story in this one. But for some reason, the coaching gaffe of the century caused it to be second fiddle. But Lamar Jackson's hurt again. He didn't play the entirety of the second half, dealing with the back injury. He spoke to the media. Q was there, so we're going to get his insights on that. But we'll touch on that next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging sneaks. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts with great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Prices include fees up front, which I love. No last-second surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off Gametime. Terms apply. We're back here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam Njoku, Kevin Oestreicher, Kadri Ismail. We are here after the Ravens unfortunately fall to the New England Patriots. We are available twice a week, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, after every Ravens game, the next Ravens game was on Saturday, prime time against the Green Bay Packers. Probably the last gasp of effort for this Ravens team. Will they have Lamar Jackson under center? We don't know, but we shall certainly see in that game. But the Ravens did lose Lamar Jackson to an injury yet again. This time not the leg. It was a back injury. John Harbaugh spoke to the media after the game and said that looked like he was kneed in the back. And it was a bruise that was too painful for Lamar Jackson to come out there and compete. Lamar Jackson spoke to the media after the contest and also said that he got a Toradol shot, I believe, to try and make it happen. But he was a little too banged up. The pain wouldn't subside, and unfortunately, he was unable to go. Q, you spoke to Lamar Jackson after the game. What did you hear from Lamar Jackson, and how did he look following that painful injury, of course, in the first half of the contest?
Yep. So, in full disclosure, when you say I spoke, we, the media, we
Yes.
all spoke to Lamar. And if it was just me, I would have probably had more of a one-on-one conversation. And I definitely would have been like, yo, bro, here's how I can help you. But anyway,
You could have brought him on the show. You could have brought him on the show.
Yeah, of course.
yeah, I'd have had him and D-Hen on the show.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think what I saw was pretty much a guy who was not comfortable standing up. I mean, he, took him forever to kind of sit at his locker and feel like, all right, I'm gonna get ready for the next thing, and obviously get himself dressed and ready to, address the media. But yeah, he was moving real slow. He had this kind of angst look on his face of intense pain, and for that being said, he was saying that, yeah, he tried to go. He tried to give it a go and try to help himself. But, just all of it, trying to throw the ball, all of it, just couldn't do it. And, I didn't hear about the Toradol shot, but that's interesting because if he did take a Toradol shot and it didn't work, I mean, that just shows you just how bad it was, because I have had to have a Toradol shot when I sprained my MCL, and that thing works. It is all I will say. So for Lamar, it was pretty bad, for him to take it and it not work. I think it's one of those situations where, man, you get kicked in the back and it's a contusion of an injury. Yeah, I'm sure they checked it out, made sure his kidney and all the things and all his internal organs and the visceral was okay. But boy, that just mentally, I can see where it would be frustrating if I were Lamar. I know he's gonna have a hard time sleeping tonight because getting kicked like that and just the intensity of the pain, it's not a fun injury to have.
No, and Q, when you saw the replay, it looked like it was kind of like the rib side area, like right, I guess, on the lower-ish type of back, but not a direct shot to the back. Obviously, we don't know. He's scheduled, I think, to get a CT scan tomorrow to kind of determine what's going on, if I read or heard that correctly. But is that like disc stuff that you think? Because, I knew you were in there too, but then you detailed it for us. But like, your colleagues in there are also saying like he was leaning on lockers and
oh yeah,
oh,
he
was.
Like,
how much was he struggling, and like do you worry about like disc issues with that, or like what's kind of your first thought process?
Well, I mean, I think if it were my unprofessional assessment is that he more than likely had damaged the QL, the quadratus lumborum, more than likely, the other muscle tissue around there. I'm sure he has a sacroiliac. I know probably his hips are misaligned because of the way the jarring of the hit. At the same time, I think also I wouldn't necessarily feel it was disc, but the facet could get bruised. And, now you're talking about that rotation. Obviously, that's what helps him throw the ball. That's going to be in question. The nerve issue in there. If he did, get a blunt force in there, therefore that means that's going to be some level of bruising, some level of blood. So therefore, there's going to be some scarring in there that needs to be addressed and looked at. Um, those are all things that, if treated correctly, you're going to be able to get it healed up and back under control. Usually they do it allopathically, and so there's going to be some anti-inflammatories that I'm sure they're going to have to prescribe to him to help him kind of settle down the swelling. And then it's just treatment, and the treatment that will go on, and they'll try to figure out what is best for him to try to get back out there on the field as fast as he can.
Yeah, that would be something. I mean, the way you're making it sound, I know a lot could happen. And, this is a short week for the Ravens. The Ravens play the Packers on Saturday, not Sunday. He said he's going to try and make it to the Packers game. But, man, based on what you're saying and how he looked and Toradol shot, and, you mentioned the CT scan, Kevin, I mean, it's going to be tough for Lamar Jackson with all of those other ailments, even though he said that the back injury didn't have anything to do with the other injuries and that they weren't connected. But, man, I would be shocked if he played on Saturday, and that would be crucial for the Ravens because the Ravens have to play on Saturday knowing that they have a watch party essentially with the Steelers and the Browns on Sunday to determine pretty much what happens. So I want to talk about, before we get into the next break, Zay Flowers and the fumbling issue that was. And Zay Flowers has had an up and down year. We've seen him had that fumble in the AFC Championship. It seems like he's been trying to right that wrong for the last 2 seasons, and you're starting to see more of, when I saw him hanging on to the football with that catch and he was just hanging it, my first initial reaction was, cover the ball. I mean, what are you doing? Seems like more of the same. And Zay Flowers says, looking for a big contract. The Ravens give Rashad Bateman a contract. Bateman's pretty much been a no-show since that, extension. But Zay Flowers is going to be looking for top-tier money. How were you feeling, Q, about that fumble, knowing that you played receiver and holding on to the football is so important in the game in which the Ravens did turn the football over twice, or I believe maybe it was 3 times, 2 or 3 times. What are your thoughts about that with Zay Flowers? Do you think there's still a place for him on this team? Would you pretty much be too critical? Do you feel like we were being too critical of Zay Flowers with that mistake that he made, or are we somewhere in between with it?
No, I'm not saying that we're being too critical. I think it is what it is. You had a really solid game. You had 7 targets, 7 catches. You made some big plays. The reverse that action that he had for the score was great, abilities and showcasing his ability to set up a run and then at the same time make guys miss and get it into the end zone. All those things were on point and it looked good. But I think for what he is called on to be, the number 1 receiver, if you're, receiver 1 and you're the go-to guy, when you're the go-to guy, you don't make mistakes like that. And, yeah, we can look at the AFC Championship game and we can say that, oh man, he's going to learn from that. He's going to grow and all that. And that's all well and good. You can learn from it and you can grow from it. I'm sure he has. And clearly, he's back-to-back 1,000-yard, seasons and all the things. But being the go-to guy means that everybody in the house knows that when it's 3rd down, they're going to you. Being the go-to guy means that when a play needs to be made, they go to Stephon Diggs. They go to my guy from last night, Moore. When the Bears needed to make a big play, they're going to go to him. That's go-to receiver type, mindset, and everybody knows it. And I think for what we saw with Zay, you just can't have those mistakes, and that's where he knows that. But yeah, that was such a missed opportunity. And I think part of his game is his shiftiness, but it's interesting because the way in which he is shifty, he is not recognizing there are times when you just got to get what you can get. I mean, this is the NFL, and everybody is everybody, meaning that there's such a fine margin of speed. We're talking, tenths and hundredths of a second to separate you from a guy who weighs 250 pounds to a guy that might even be 300 pounds. Tenths of a second, yards matter. And they, from a scouting report, has had him pegged. He is going to try to be shifty. He's going to have the ball go away from his body. And speaking of scouting reports, one of the things that they talked about with Derrick Henry was that, his scouting report was he runs like a speed skater. And so that shiftiness of run action, when the ball goes away from him, there's opportunities to punch the ball out. And so I credit that coaching tidbit and for the players on the Patriots defense of recognizing both Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers' weaknesses to create those turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zay is awesome, but the problem is, like, too many times we've seen him juke back and lose 3 yards on a great play, or obviously the fumbles in big time moments. And, I think Zay deserves the criticism he gets in those moments for the plays that he makes. And, we've seen Zay make a lot, but it's like Zay Flowers giveth and Zay Flowers taketh away. And that's like what Zay has kind of been this year. And the Ravens do have a decision to make, because if they decide not to pay him, another team is going to. And that could be a team that already has an established number one in place and says, hey, we want to pay 2 receivers a boatload of money, because I think Zay's going to be asking for a boatload of money, because, he does have a resume to back it up. And, the Ravens don't have to make a decision right now. I mean, they have Zay for at least the next 2 seasons. I think they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. So it's not like a decision you need to make tomorrow. But, at the same time, we also know the salary cap's going to continue to go up. We're going to see bigger wide receiver contracts. And, unless there's some weird 5th-year option training camp thing like with Rashad Bateman and Travis Jones, Zay's going to get paid. So I would love to see the Ravens get another established player, because I think we can all call it like it is. And I know, Q, you're a huge Rashad Bateman guy. I'm a huge Rashad Bateman guy, but it's just been disappointing this year for Rashad. Like, he's been a non-factor for practically the whole season. And it puts Zay, even with that, has done a lot with, teams essentially giving him a lot of attention, and he's still able to, he fried Christian Gonzalez for like the entirety of this game, pretty much. Like, he is that guy. But he even talked about it in the offseason on social media. He was joking about it. He's like, all right, no more juking. We're going to run straight. And then he just hasn't done it all season. So he's aware of the issue, but I get it's instinct. It's heat of the moment, heat of the game. But, as a pro, like you were kind of talking about, you have to know that, like, that stuff doesn't work at this level. And you need to be able to recognize that, and even just fall forward for a yard and not make it flashy is better than trying to juke back 2 times and lose like 3. Stephon Diggs had a play in this game where he juked 3 Ravens defenders in a span of 5 seconds, made all of them miss, by the way, and then lunged forward for a yard. Wasn't trying to like do it again and go like Diggs was like, all right, I know I can make these moves, and then that's it. I just want to get a yard or 2 more. Where for Zay, it's like he makes a move, and then it's like, well, let me do this and let me do that. It just feels like he's doing too much at times. And I think that if he just simplifies his game a little bit, it'll be better for him and the team in general.
For sure.
Yeah, it's so funny too, because that quickness, that's where, you use it, but then you have to have that 6th sense. And I don't know why he has not developed that 6th sense of knowing when to just take off and get what you can get, or get down after making a couple of different level moves. But yeah.
Absolutely right. It's unfortunate. And Zay Flowers made a huge play against the Bengals last week. And again, he had a great game this game. Just that fumble was costly. Old habits die hard, I guess. And boy, did the Ravens' playoff hopes die with it. But not 100% out of the woods. There's still a chance for this Ravens team. We're going to talk about what's next for this Ravens team. It includes the possibility that the Ravens still make the playoffs. And no, after this loss, it's like no shot. But there is a slight chance the Ravens can still get it done. We'll talk about it, and then talk about what are the odds of it actually happening here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement for this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there is no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you will win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks myself during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. The new stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. That is huge for me, as injuries happen all the time. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. We are back here at Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Myself, Kevin Oestreicher, Kadri Ismail, talking Ravens football here. Again, we're available twice a week, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and after every Ravens game, the next one on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. You can also catch Kevin on the Locked On Ravens podcast every day, including the weekends. We had a couple of extra episodes because, of course, Ravens News doesn't sleep, and unfortunately, neither does Kevin, even though Kevin is probably getting some rest every now and then. But want to take advantage of Kevin's support and pushing the Ravens news out there. Make sure you tune in to the Locked On Ravens podcast, both on YouTube and wherever you get your audio podcast. Now, the Ravens lose to the Patriots. We all know that. The Ravens fall below 500 yet again. And the Steelers did not do any favors for the Ravens as they pick up a win against the Detroit Lions, who were 7-point underdogs against the Lions, by the way, and the Steelers were able to pick up the win anyway. How did the Ravens make the postseason? Well, the wild card is out of the picture. The wild card is done. There's no shot for the Ravens to make the wild card. There's so many teams in the wild card hunt with 4 losses, 5 losses. The Ravens are sitting firmly at 8. So the only chance for them to win and get into the postseason is to win the division. How do the Ravens do it? Well, they'll need to beat the Packers. That's the first and foremost thing. They have to beat the Packers on Saturday. Then the unthinkable happens. The Browns beat the Steelers. Now, the Browns took it to the Bills a little bit. There was a shot. The Bills almost lost to the Browns. So never know, there's a chance that could happen if the Browns were to do that and the Ravens win against the Packers on Saturday. Then week 18, that matchup for the AFC North Championship is still on the line. Q, I see you shaking your head now. Is there any shot, Q, for the Ravens to find a way to get into the postseason, even though it seems that all hope is lost?
Yeah, all hope is lost. Therefore, no, there is no shot. It's like, what are we doing here? We already recognize that, water is wet. The Ravens are not going to make the playoffs. They keep on fumbling away opportunities that they had because they're just not a good football team. I mean, it's so funny. Right from the very beginning, it was hilarious. It was hilarious, but it wasn't hilarious. It was interesting, however you want to use the first term to describe what I'm about to say next. But player intros, people love the player intros. I think this is one of the best stadiums for player intros. Daniel Faalele and Andrew Voorhees. Daniel got the loudest boos for a home game intro. And Voorhees kind of got like a, okay, we're moving on. Like, I mean, never in the history of man have I heard people boo your own team when you're coming out. But then, yes, the game itself is just, this is how it is. It's like, what are we doing here? And it's bad. And so therefore, no, I don't think they are going to be sitting there trying to be glass half full. I promise you, these dudes are going to have that U-Haul truck, and it is about to pack this thing up. That's the bottom line. U-Haul.
Yeah.
Kevin, you can start talking compensatory picks right now because it is officially the offseason.
No, don't make me do it. I want to be done with compensatory. I'll talk trades with you. I'll talk free agency with you. I'll talk draft with you. But
now I want. You know who I want to talk? I don't want to talk no second round. Oh, Mike Green fell into the second round. No, I want some stud dude, you trading up into the first round again. I want some stud offensive lineman that you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, the Dallas Cowboys might know they're not because we're getting them before they even think about it.
Mhm.
I want the doggone everybody from free agency. Oh, you gonna be a free agent? You're a good player. We want you. Oh, you're coming. Oh, you wanna, bruh? Like, let's talk. You come here. We like you. That's what we trying to do.
Yeah, hey, and what? Look, to me, like you get those first round picks, you get the second round picks, but I don't want to hear anything about fifth round picks anymore. I don't want to hear anything about sixth round picks
Nope.
anymore. I mean,
Nope.
at this point, sign the guys in free agency, like you said, Q, and give away those picks. I don't care about them anymore. You know, this team, Lamar Jackson is going to be 29 next month. You know, this team's not getting any younger. I mean, they have some nice young talent, but you know, Derrick Henry gets another year older, and Roquan Smith gets another year older, and I mean the trenches need work. So, I mean, yeah,
I just need an overhaul.
yeah, essentially they could be working with a 40% overhaul, 60% overhaul of their O-line next year. But to Sam, your original question, I mean, no, I don't think Baltimore makes the playoffs. Essentially, to make it simple, if the Ravens win out, they make the playoffs, and if the Steelers lose out, they make the playoffs. Like the Ravens have to win out and the Steelers have to lose out. That essentially is how that is going to work. I've run
So if
it.
if they both win next week,
The Ravens are eliminated.
Ravens out. Yep.
that's what we're saying. They're playing the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. So actually, if the Ravens win in the Steel, yeah. So the Steelers, but okay, if the Ravens, and so if the Ravens lose, and so if the Ravens lose, they're done. Like they're out.
Sure.
It doesn't matter at all. So essentially, yes, the Ravens have to win out and the Steelers have to lose out. That's the only scenario where the Ravens make the playoffs. That's that at least that's what I'm seeing right now, unless I made a mistake. But I think that's
so. If the Ravens win and the Steelers beat the Browns,
but then that's it. Then they're done.
They're exactly right. We talking off season. So
Shedeur Sanders, if you can hear us,
save us, Shedeur.
If the Browns beat the Steelers next week and the Ravens win, we all have to go. We all have to do the celebration on here together.
Yeah,
we all have to
do the
Shedeur wrists.
Man, I will.
Yeah, you can't do it yet. Not yet. We gotta hope.
Not yet, but we practice. We practice it.
We'll practice. All right.
That's gonna be something. I don't know. I'm not saying
U-Haul game.
We'll take the U-Haul to Santa Clara.
I think the Ravens will need to beat the Packers first. That's the first and foremost thing. If they don't beat the Packers, none of this matters. And again, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Lamar Jackson's back injury looks significant. That boy could barely move based on what Q was saying. And, Tardar shot wasn't working. Yeah, he was barely getting up. You think this man's going to play 60 minutes of football in a must-win game in Lambeau Field in the freezing tundra that is Green Bay, Wisconsin? I don't know. Doesn't sound like it, but certainly a shot to see. Now, here's a weird question. In fact, we're going to save this for the break. We're going to take a little break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about it because it deals with John Harbaugh and whether or not he returns here in Baltimore next year. We're going to get right into it before we close out the show because I know a lot of Ravens fans have been clamoring about it. They've been talking about it. We kind of been flirting with the decision making here, but let's just get down to it. We'll come on the show in a little bit and talk about whether or not John Harbaugh should be the head coach for this Ravens team moving forward. Next here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. We are back, Locked On Ravens Squad Show, final segment of the program. Appreciate you guys for taking your time. It is 1:31 in the morning here for those listening in and watching live. Q is still at M&T Bank Stadium in the press box, trucking along as we get to talking about the Ravens fumbling away another opportunity at having a chance at winning the division. Now we're talking about Cancun on 3. Nivek 323 has said. I mean,
that comes from my basketball team, the Denver Nuggets. They were saying Cancun on 3 before the season ended. And honestly, before we get sorry, I just want to say this one quick thing, Sam.
Yep.
Because last week I fried the Bengals for giving up in that game against the Ravens late, or against practically like halfway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I thought that once Zay Flowers fumbled, despite the fact the Ravens had 3 timeouts, the Ravens were just done. It felt like to me the Ravens defense just rolled over. And that was the same energy for the Bengals. I'm going to use it for the Ravens because that's fair. I thought that was embarrassing. So I just want to put that out there.
I think it was embarrassing too. And I think that, again, lack of leadership. There's not a Ray Lewis on the football field. There's not a Terrell Suggs. There's not a Q on the football field either anymore. There's nobody here that's going to be a vocal leader to lift up the spirits of this team. I mean, there's guys like Roquan who's rah-rah. We've seen Marlon Humphrey talk about, being that leader for this team. There's some instances of that, but his personality may not warrant it. And Lamar Jackson's gone on record as saying he's not that guy. And so the onus falls on the head coach to be that guy. You see it with the Lions and Dan Campbell. You've seen it with guys like Bill Belichick in the past. And we're asking that from John Harbaugh. And that's pretty much been in the MO. I mean, we called him the CEO of this team. And right now, the leadership is waning because, again, as you mentioned, after that fumble, the Ravens looked like they gave up. The Ravens defense certainly gave up. I think they talked about it after the game. One of the players, I think it might have been Kyle Hamilton, that said that the dam broke at the end of that game. And then the Ravens were unable to stop the Patriots on their quest to, take care of business and get that playoff berth, which the Patriots did in fact get. So let's talk about John Harbaugh. Obviously, there's been some speculation around here about whether or not John Harbaugh is fit to be the head coach after the season. He definitely is going to stay and remain the head coach up until the end of the season. But after that, what are your thoughts, Q? Do you think it's time for a change? Do you think that the Ravens may take a hard look at themselves and maybe, this is the last gasp? I think he maybe have one more year left on his contract. So they may not want to expire the deal and move on and pay him. They did so with Brian Billick. Let's not forget that. The Ravens in 2008 hired John Harbaugh when Brian Billick still had years left on his contract. So it's a possibility. But Q, do you think it's time for a change, or maybe John Harbaugh sticks around for a year or two if Lamar Jackson finds a way to get it done?
I don't know if it is Steve Bisciotti's plan to let John go, or even Eric DaCosta and John, since they, such a tag team. But I do know that to do nothing and to think that everything is okay is criminal. And I think that for Steve Bisciotti, who was saying, it's a win now proposition, this is what I want, blah, blah, blah. Well, are you still in that aggressive, we want to win now kind of a mold? Because if that's the case, then I think you need to go start looking for the next GM and the next head coach and allow for the regime to shift out and have a regime come in that can compete. And I think that's where, the run, it seems like it was a good run, but I think that, a new voice needs to be heard, a new direction on how to draft and who to bring in and who to pay and all that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree. I think Harbaugh honestly probably should have been let go last year, but and I've been consistent in saying that throughout the past calendar year, but at least there was an argument last year of they were one dropped 2-point conversion away from going back to the AFC Championship game, if you wanted to make that argument. But there's just no argument this year. Like, there's nothing. And I've said it over and over again. Like, the reason John Harbaugh has stuck around is because every year when Lamar Jackson has been healthy, everybody points to that Ravens team and they say that's the team that's going to win 12, 13, 14 games and put themselves in position in the postseason. While the success hasn't been there in the postseason, you lose that. And also, again, I don't know what's going on in that locker room, but if you have lost and the messaging is not there anymore and it's stale or whatever word you want to use, what does John Harbaugh have? Because those are the two things that I think have been holding him, is his relationship with his players and his ability to, Q talked about it earlier, be like a player's coach that connects, where he's not that X's and O's type of guy. He's, like a motivator, essentially. If you lose that and the regular season success isn't there, then what do you have? And this, John Harbaugh has been the coach of this team for nearly 20 years. 20 years. That's a long time. That's more than most coaches ever coach some coaches ever coach ever in the NFL. John Harbaugh's been with one team for 20 years and almost. I know it's not quite 20, but you look at that, and it's what makes these mistakes and gaffes and frustrating losses so much more difficult to accept, because this isn't a rookie head coach who's just trying to figure things out. He's not working with a young team that, has to go through these experiences to, I say it, guys, every year. I had this conversation with you both. How many revenge tours does this team need to go on before a change is made here? Like, I'm over it at this point. And it doesn't take away John Harbaugh's success that he's had with this team. The regular season doesn't take away the fact that he is a Super Bowl winning head coach and that, he has been good for this organization. The hire was a slam dunk for this team. But sometimes things just have to end. And I go back to Greg Roman and say that, look, that was awesome for Lamar in 2019 when they promoted him. Lamar grew with Greg in his second season, won the MVP, but then the offense began to grow stale and continued to grow stale. And they moved on from him a couple of years too late, and I get it. But then they bring in Todd Monken as a guy to take what Greg Roman built and said, all right, let's try to elevate this up. And that's what they did. But how many coordinators do you have to go through? How many players do you have to go through before you just sit yourself down, look yourself in the mirror, whether you're Steve Bisciotti or Eric DeCosta, and say, maybe it is the head coach. And it all falls back on him. And to me, I just think that the Ravens have outgrown John Harbaugh. And I think the philosophies and some of the things that they're being coached, and again, this is now getting national attention. It was kind of there early in the season when they were going through their tough stretch and people were wondering if Harbaugh was going to stay around. But now we're seeing it. Chris Collinsworth just blatantly calling out John Harbaugh multiple times on the broadcast, and them sticking with guys and essentially going down with the ship. They are unwilling to change a lot of key things that they've needed to. And, this could finally be this. The ship is sinking, and it feels like it's almost all the way underwater. And, John Harbaugh's not going to abandon his ship. It doesn't feel like he's going to go out there and, make a change and try to patch up leaks with different things that can help. Feels like he's just going to let the ship sink. And honestly, what does scare me, at least for me, who I think the team does need change, is hearing that the Bengals are probably going to keep Zach Taylor around. Because if the Ravens keep John Harbaugh around, they're no better than the Bengals. And the Bengals are, known as, an organization that doesn't like to spend, to put it nicely, and other things about them. You don't want to be put in that conversation of a team that, can't move on and doesn't want to move on, even though it's right in front of your face. It's not all on John Harbaugh too, by the way. But when you're the head coach and when this has happened to you consistently year after year, and the issues, some of them haven't changed at all and others have only maybe slightly gotten better and haven't had the improvement they've needed, you need to stop the bleeding before it's too late here. Because what if they continue to go down this well and all of a sudden Lamar's 32, 33, not to say he'll be a bad player by that point, but time's ticking here. And Lamar's your guy, in my opinion. I think he should be. And, I think you have to make a decision here about the direction you want this team to go. And, for John Harbaugh, I think moving forward, he shouldn't be a part of it, especially if this team misses the playoffs. That's just unacceptable with some of the players they have on this roster.
Yep, I agree completely. Nothing, no notes, Kevin, on that as well. I think that one of the good things, and there's two things that I want to say. One thing, I feel kind of good about Lamar Jackson's future in his mid to late 30s. I think that what we're seeing with his leg injury is what Lamar will probably look like when he gets older and not as mobile. And he still looks like a pretty decent quarterback. I think in the right system with the right head coach, I think Lamar Jackson will be fine later on. And that was something that was a little questionable about that. So good to see that Lamar Jackson is still a pretty great passer of the football. He's not going to be as dynamic as he once was when he hits 35, but it seems like he's still going to be a great guy to count on to be on the center. Now, Lamar Jackson's contract is another thing that we want to talk about, because he's due $70+ million. He's seen that the writing's on the wall with his team. He wants to win a championship. We knew that as soon as we drafted him when he was on that stage with Deion Sanders all those years ago. I'm very interested to see what happens in this offseason. Most quarterbacks, most front offices would have got something done with Lamar Jackson prior to the start of the season. Whether or not you want to say is because Lamar Jackson doesn't have an agent, or maybe Lamar Jackson wants to hold off because he wants to, maximize the amount of money he gets. The fact of the matter is, Lamar Jackson holds all the cards here. And if Lamar Jackson wants a new head coach, he's going to get a new head coach. And if the Ravens were to go that route, if the Ravens were to have to choose between Lamar Jackson or John Harbaugh, if it comes to that, I'm not saying that's what the message is around here. I'm just saying this is a scenario in which could potentially happen. Do you see Steve Bisciotti saying, we're going to stick with our guy, John Harbaugh, and we'll find a way for you to get on some greener patch? I've seen some stories about the Ravens should trade Lamar Jackson, what have you, but they may be in a situation where they have to make a decision between keeping one or the other. If that situation is going to become hypothetical, as it may be, Kevin, where do you see this team leaning to, hopefully, for Steve Bisciotti?
In terms of keeping Lamar, keeping Harbaugh? Is that what you're at? I mean, I would keep Lamar. I mean, I think that's, and Q has had this conversation with me as well. I mean, I would keep Lamar. I mean, this team can't afford to reset at the quarterback position with the way this roster is positioned right now. And unless you're trying to trade for Joe Burrow and you think that's a possibility, I think Lamar, if you wanted to reset at the quarterback position, you'd need a player that is, in that elite tier like Lamar Jackson is, whether you think Joe's better than Lamar or not. I personally don't, but I think Lamar's a better player than Joe, and that just is what it is. But you'd have to get that type of player in the building if you wanted to move off of Lamar. The way this roster is positioned, I mean, what are you going to tell your guys? Hey, we just traded a 2-time MVP quarterback away who, when he has a good offensive line and he's healthy, just put up 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions last season and should have won the MVP, but didn't. And, we moved off of him to keep our 18-year head coach that can't adjust in games. What message is that sending to Roquan Smith or Derrick Henry? Or, you think DeAndre Hopkins is re-signing after that? No, he's going over to Cincinnati with Burrow. So I think, to me, the answer is Lamar. But you're right, Sam. He does hold all the cards. And it's going to cost a lot of money to re-sign him. You cannot operate with that $70+ million cap hit on your books. So you're going to have to extend or restructure that contract. Josh Allen got a hefty deal from Buffalo before this. So the Bills made out on top with that. So, Lamar's going to come to the table saying, hey, I want a deal that's going to top Josh's. And it's just, you go back to what it was in 2023, where the longer you wait, even if those quarterback deals don't surpass Lamar's, because some of those quarterbacks just aren't as good as Lamar, he's still going to get a hefty contract. So I personally am choosing Lamar over John Harbaugh because, who are you going to bring in? Daniel Jones off a torn Achilles? You're going to trade for Tua? You're going to try to trade him for a top pick and, mini tank for a year and try to get Arch Manning in 2 years? Maybe get Mendoza in this. It's not an option for me. This roster is built with a lot of veterans that are meant to win now. You're not going to trade all these guys away. And, to me, I think the answer is pretty clearly Lamar. And I think you can get a guy in the building that can help Lamar, can help the defense, whether it's a guy like Clint Kubiak or Jesse Minter, who obviously has that Raven connection. Maybe you just promote Todd Monken or something. I don't know, a veteran coach like that. There are options that are available. I know Matt Nagy's getting a lot of consideration and, others as well. But, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, I know from the college perspective, he's somebody that's getting some NFL love right now too. So I think there are options, and I think that some of those guys, in fact, a lot of those guys could help not only Lamar Jackson, but this team move forward.
I don't know what else to say.
Sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, not you. I'm just saying the lights are going out here, and it's time for us to say goodbye to all the boys and girls.
You're watching that clock. I see you watching every second.
Man, I'm telling you, the play clock just ran out.
All right.
Time for bed.
Time for bed. We're gonna close the show off on that note. Time for bed. Hopefully this isn't the end.
And then we'll do it again on Saturday at 12:45 too.
Live from Lambeau Field, maybe for Q now.
There you go.
That'd be insane. But again, I appreciate you guys for joining us. I think Lamar Jackson, the reason for the question is Lamar holds all the cards. If Lamar wants to get rid of John Harbaugh, he has the tools in which to do so. So we're going to find out if Lamar Jackson is Team Harbaugh or not, because that contract is going to weigh heavy on the decision-making of this franchise. And there's a storm coming, Ravens fans. Just want to let you know that. But I do appreciate everybody for joining us here. It is 1:47 in the morning. Q is ready to go. I'm ready to go. Kevin's ready to go. Let's sign out the show and get done and get gone. So I appreciate everybody here for joining us here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. And we will see you guys here on Wednesday. See ya.